So you may have gotten yourself a little carried away at Costco, and now you're home and you're staring at a pile of bulbs thinking to yourself, okay, what the heck do I do with this now? Well, friends, I am here as a woman who has planted tens of thousands of bulbs, and I'm going to walk you through my step-by-step plan so you are not wasting your money and ending up with a bag of sad, moldy bulbs. Let's get into some just right off the bat basics. Let's be clear, it is at the end of August when I am filming this, and I'm actually not going to plant these out for another 2 months potentially. I like to plant all of my bulbs at the same time. A lot of people say, oh, you can stagger them. You can do these ones now and these ones later. I'm not going to be doing that. I'm not going to remember where I planted bulbs from one week to the next. I want to do it once, and I want to have my layout set, and I want to move on with my life. Now, the reason people say a lot of different timing for bulbs is because there are some areas of our world that suffer from tulip fire. You can Google it. Basically, you want to wait until the ground is cold enough before you plant your tulips. And by cool enough, I mean below 60 degrees. I don't want anything in the 60s. I want it 50s. I want it 40s. I will even take upper 30s. There is no shade. And I will plant in a window. For me in the Northwest, I am planting everything. And I do mean everything in October or even sometimes November. That is my power range. And how I choose to approach planting is not by allium bulbs this weekend, tulips this weekend, daffodils the next weekend. That is not how I roll. I roll by section of the garden. So do yourself a favor, section out your plantings. So what you'll see me do probably in future videos, or even if you look back, I will do my front border at one point in time. Then I will work on the dining patio border behind me. So I don't lose track of where I have planted, because I also use a power planter when I plant my bulbs. It is hands down the best method, and I will touch on that in a little bit. There's a ton of different bulbs out there, but for me, I've got my heavy hitters out front. We have alliums, we have tulips. Oh my gosh, I have some baby iris. I also have muscari. We have traditional hyacinths. I have a few daffodils, and I think that's it for this collection. There are a lot of amazing specialty bulbs like Camassia, Fritillaria. They're just like amazing, amazing range. I will link below a video that I did that was a deep dive on designing with bulbs because I talk about them in much more depth. When you are bringing your bulbs home, you need to worry about storage because like we touched on, it's literally the last day of August and I'm not going to be planting these out for potentially 2+ months. So my goal right now is to make sure that I don't waste my money so I don't have like a sad sack of bulbs. Also, by the by, alliums smell terrible when they're moldy. So I've learned a thing or two. You basically need 4 things when you are storing bulbs. You need it dry, breathable, cool, dark. That's it. Dry, breathable, cool, dark. So I want to walk you through what I do because I've noticed that I just have a certain cadence that ensures I'm not wasting my money. We're going to start here with a few alliums. This is one of my favorites. This is an allium Schubertii. It's amazing. It's a little tiny firework. I love it. And I am not going to leave it in this bag. That's like rule number 1. Don't leave it in the bag. There's a few reasons I take it out of the bag. Number 1, I always want to inspect what is going on here. I have shopped at Costco. I love Costco, but they are not a nursery. Let's be real clear about this. They're not a nursery, so I don't have nursery level of expectations. And so I shop early and I grab and go. So these alliums are beautiful. They are gorgeous. I kind of usually go through and I give everybody a little squeeze. Sometimes I'll smell them. I've got a really sharp sense of smell. I think it's like mom nose or something. But I want to make sure everybody is firm and in good working order before I pop it into a paper bag. Some people may think that this next bit is a little bit extra, but honestly, this is how I ensure that my bulbs actually survive 2 months until I plant them and I get the best results. What I have here is this is just literally a basic paper lunch sack. I love these. I use these for seed saving. I use them for all sorts of projects around my house. And so just grab a bag. This was a bag of 50. I actually picked this up at CVS. The next thing you're gonna do is you're gonna take your little bag of bulbs here, and I am not gonna overly stuff this bag. This one is super important. Do not take 4 bags of Shubertii and plunk them down in the same paper bag. This does not achieve our result of breathable. Like, that is so important, because if you smush all these in here, your risk of having mold and that mold spreading just skyrockets. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm just gonna write down the type of bulb. And if you are doing seed saving, I will also write the date on here. But for this one, I'm just gonna write the variety that I have. No, I don't think I even touched on this as much. The reason I'm taking them out of plastic is I find that plastic, even when it is perforated, even when it has a ton of holes, even when I rip it open like this, plastic still attracts and traps moisture. That's why I take this extra step. And for me, it's worth it. Yes, this bag of bulbs was only $15.99, but quite frankly, with like 2 cents and a little bit of extra time for me, I'm gonna ensure that my $15 is well protected. Now, once you do this, you are not going to like massively roll this up and seal it with tape or anything crazy like that. What I will usually do is I will just fold it over once like this. And if you are worried about this spilling, you can give it one staple, but I would always go in and check on this as you have it in storage to make sure you're not trapping moisture. I'm gonna treat all my alliums the exact same way. You basically want to take them out, you wanna check for firmness, you wanna inspect them, make sure you're not harboring mold or bacteria that is gonna go into storage, and we're gonna get rid of our plastic and anything that is not breathable. All right, bonus tip here. The other beautiful thing about using a paper bag is a lot of times when I will do a complex bulb display for a client, I will pre-label every single one of my bags. And then I'm actually writing the location within each garden so that when I arrive on site, I'm ready to roll. I know exactly which bag of bulbs is going to which location. So it might say something like upper driveway, cut flower garden, waterside, so on and so forth. You get the picture. I'm gonna go through storage for forcing at the end of this video because forcing is a seriously complex beast. I've done it multiple times. I've done it with a variety of different bulbs, and some are better like starter forcers than others, but we'll touch on that at the end. On the right side of the table here, we have our tulips, muscari, hyacinth, daffodils. We've got our baby irises, the whole shebang. And what I would say here is you are going to store them in the exact same way I just showed you, in the paper bag, labeled, breathable, awesome. The only difference here is if you are in a warmer zone, you are really going to need to pre-chill any tulip, daffodil, or hyacinth that you are putting in your garden, because all of these bulbs require a certain amount of chill period for them to actually come into bloom. In front of me, I have 2 different tulip mixes. This one right here has 2 varieties of tulips. They are very clearly labeled right here. If you turn it around to the back, it shows you exact quantities of each. I did have a lot of questions about this from my last video. And so that is why I'm bringing in this next bag. This is also a mixture. However, it just says Blazing Flames Mix, Mélange. I know from experience, looking at the back here, my varieties are not divvied out. So this is a complete and total wild card. So these ones, I'm actually gonna do 2 bags of 25. I'm gonna separate the varieties. But for this variety of tulips, this is just a mix. I have no idea what bulbs are gonna be what. So with this, probably what I'll do, since this is a bag of 50, is I will actually break it out and I will put 25 in each bag, because this feels like a lot and I'm not gonna achieve that breathability component that we just talked about. This one's actually already busted at the side, so I'll just open it up that way, but check this out. Ooh, these ones look really good. These ones look really good. And so right here, do you see it says Tulip Glamour Girl? Very clearly labeled. You know exactly what is in this. This is like a dump and go situation. And then over here we are. Tulip Finola. Now I've done a whole video on designing with bulbs. However, I want to break down really quickly some basics about how I design with them and where we're actually going to put these things. First and foremost, let's focus on alliums. Now, alliums are a variety or kind of like a bulb range that I like to buy a lot of because they're going to bloom at all different times. The other thing about alliums is they come in all different shapes and sizes. So typically what I like to do is I like to choose like a tall, medium, and a short. So when you select your tall, medium, and short, or two talls and a medium, whatever you choose to do, you want to make sure that you are spacing out the bloom period. Because if you buy three that all bloom at the same time, you are going to shrink your window of enjoyment. And so I want to make sure that you know before you buy. Like, let's be smart about how we're spending our money and actually the result that we're going to get from our garden. And a final note on all bulbs and their placement. I typically like to plant my bulbs surrounding my perennials. So I will weave them in and out of a perennial border, making sure that I tuck them as close to the root ball as humanly possible. And here's why. Most of your bulbs are going to come up before your perennials do. And so what this does is it does two things. Number one, it fills a naked spot in the garden. And then number two, bulbs will naturally have a die-off period, and I find that people just don't like looking at the foliage. Well, if I plant my daffodils amongst a grass, right? As soon as that daffodil is dying back, we want to leave the foliage in place so it recharges the bulb. However, the grass is going to simultaneously start coming on. So you have this beautiful cadence of a bulb dying back and a grass or a perennial emerging, and it helps to kind of disguise a little bit that unsightly foliage that a lot of people just simply don't like. Alliums are a little bit different, and I'm going to tell you why. Your alliums are going to bloom a little bit later, so I can be a little bit more free-flowing with those. They're going to coincide with a lot more perennials, a lot more grasses. However, I do want you to be aware that we are going to tuck these little bad boys into the landscape. I don't want them like hanging out on their own. They need to be with friends. And one of the other reasons why is because allium foliage is the first to yellow in its growth cycle. So as soon as these guys are about ready to burst into a beautiful just purple balloon floating above your borders, all of their foliage starts to yellow and it doesn't look good. So I always like to hide it kind of mid to back border depending on the size. Now, one special note on Schubertii. You know I love this. It's one of my favorites. However, it is one of the more shorter varieties. And so what I like to do with my Schubertii is I like to pair it with a short perennial or even a ground cover. So this coming out of some beautiful woolly thyme is so nice because you have a beautiful ground cover and then the Schubertii gets to do its own thing. The other thing I love to do with this one is put it amongst ladies' mantle. In fact, that's probably what I'm going to do behind me here because it's kind of just floating right above this beautiful mound of foliage. So pay attention to your size. Pair it with something that's going to cover the foliage but not cover the bloom. I'm going to touch on planting very briefly because I want to actually do a longer video on my growing power planter collection because they've become such a beautiful part of the work that I do. Because like I said, I'm not just planting 100, I'm planting thousands every single year. So I've got two here. I've got this little shorty, and this short one is great. I find that this is a beautiful multi-purpose. It is bigger. It is like at least 3 inches. And the reason I like this one is because a 2-inch diameter auger for me is not going to cut the mustard because I know I put in alliums and large naturalizing daffodils every single year. And so I need a 3-inch at least. I have 2 little babies. It depends on my mood and what I want to do in the garden. But this little guy, This one has seen some action. This is a 7-inch auger. I am obsessed with it. I put it just on my handheld DeWalt drill. Not only do I do bulbs with this, but I also do beautiful annual displays at clients' homes, like lining a driveway, and I just like zip along and get after it. It is awesome when you're on your hands and knees and you don't want to be doing the up and down situation. My next one is this beautiful power planter. And this one's the tall one. This one is 3 feet tall. I think this one's Laura's auger. I can't remember. I'll link it below. But this one, you're gonna notice I have a smaller shaft right here, and that's really powerful for when you're doing bulbs because I don't need to dig really deep. I just need a little bit of depth, and I need to be able to stand up and go to town. And this is when I use this auger. And in terms of depth, you don't need to go for broke. Essentially, take any bulb that you see here, go 3 times the depth, and that is the size of hole that you need. In terms of spacing, look at the back of your package. That's why it is there. One note from me to you is your alliums are all gonna have bigger spacing because you need to accommodate for the globe. If you cluster them too close together, it's not gonna be pretty and they're all gonna be like smushed in there. So follow the spacing very closely on the back of the allium packaging. In terms of movement through the landscape, think to yourself, what would an amoeba look like? I always think of them, they're like an amorphous blob. You want them to be natural. You want to have lots of movement. If you line them up like little toy soldiers, that's a look. It's a look you can go for, but expect it to look really rigid and not natural. Instead, we're going for amorphous blob, and also don't just do 7, 7, 7, 7, 7. That also looks too forced. Do 7, 5, 9, 5, 7, so on and so forth. That is actually going to get you that beautiful natural movement through the landscape that a lot of people are kind of left thinking like, why doesn't this look good? Amorphous blob, staggering your numbers, you got it. So I want to take a minute to address a few kind of one-off questions that I got in the Costco video because I think it's really important. It's so hard for me to sit there at a computer and like bang out all these answers. Plus, maybe more people have questions that are similar. So if you find a bag of bulbs from last year, typically I say pitch it and move on. That's just my recommendation. Now, if they are still firm, you could try throwing them in the ground. But if we're talking something like a tulip, for me, a tulip is really going to be a one and done unless you go with something that's in the Triumph series or the Darwin series. Those have more staying power in the landscape. Anything specialty or a double, those tend to be a one and done. And so you want to repurchase new every year. Some of you also asked about Costco in Canada. Someone did mention in the comments that a Canadian Costco was getting bulbs in. They were smaller quantities for a larger amount. So think 40 bulbs for $19.99 Canadian dollar. And so I don't know if that is higher priced because of importing taxes. I don't know if it's the same supplier. It's hard to say because I'm not in Canada, but I would love to hear you Canadians chime in down below and share your tips for what is at your Costco. Now, some of you asked about forcing. Forcing in and of itself, I'm getting really serious now. Forcing is a very long, hard conversation. You have some easy ones that are a paperwhite. You have some really difficult ones like a late double tulip. My gosh, that is a difficult thing. And then you have others that I just wouldn't even try. A Camassia, a Fritillaria. I wouldn't even go there. I'm gonna link John Sheeper's website below. He does a great job spelling out the exact chill time that you need, which always is a chill range. It's like 11 to 16 weeks, depending on what you're doing. He also lists out specific varieties that you will be more successful with. And so I would refer to him. That's going to be a great place for you to start, but forcing is too long of a conversation for this video. If you have ever tried it before and your bulb has come out malformed, twisted foliage, malformed bloom, didn't bloom at all, chances are it's a chill time issue. So after you've enjoyed your bloom display, there's a couple of really easy things. Your aftercare of your bloom display is actually gonna look like fertilizing, which I know seems crazy, but you're gonna fertilize it after it blooms, and then you're gonna wait for the foliage to actually yellow and die back, because what it's doing is it's pulling all of that nutrients back into the bulb so you have a better display the following year. The other thing that I want you to do a little bit of research on your own is with regard to things that naturalize. So most tulips are a one and done, or if they come back the second year, it's a little spotty. Unless you're going with something that's like a Triumph or a Darwin, those have better return rates. In terms of daffodils, same thing. Those are more reliable repeat bloomers, but you need to look to things, like I said, Dutch Masters, Mount Hoods, Tay-to-Tays. Those are gonna be more apt to naturalize. If you plant something like a Delnashaw or a Replete, those you might get 2 years out of, and then you're gonna need to replant. So essentially, before you go online and you fall in love with a variety, know what you're getting yourself into. Is this gonna be a one and done, or is it gonna naturalize? Because that'll help you spend your money super wisely. In short, daffodils and alliums are much more reliable repeat bloomers, but even then, do your research. Tulips, treat them as one and done. A little wrap up. Here we are, everything labeled. I forgot to mention this. I will put a bulb count right here on the paper bag. And I just have them for right now in various trays. The cardboard trays, of course, my favorite bootstrap farmer trays. You guys, yet another use for these bootstrap farmer trays. They are essential in my life. And by the way, you guys, embarrassing count, about 33 bags of bulbs. You heard it here, about 33 bags. Out of all of those, I just had a few. Let's see here. I had 4 of these in the Brilliant Mix. 4 of them looked a little suspicious, so I pulled them out. And then I had 1 Tulip Fanula that looked a little bit suspicious. It's still really firm, but like, do you see how there's just a little bit of like mold on it? I'm just playing it safe. I'm pulling it out. And then this one, this is the Blazing Flames. Oh my gosh, you guys, it's a bunch of double tulips that I just thought, oh, it looks so yummy. But this bag, for whatever reason, did have mold in it. A bunch of the bulbs, I would say like 80 to 90% of the bulbs had a little bit of blue mold on them. So Costco has an incredible return policy. It's so great. They're a local company here in the Northwest. And so I'm just going to bring this back to them. Usually what I do when I'm picking my bulbs is I will look through the back here to make sure I don't see any of that like blue fungusy stuff on them. But I was in kind of like a grab and go mood today and totally missed it. So out of all 33 bags, we had 1 that's going to go back. And then I had 5 individual tulip bulbs that I pulled out that were a little suspicious. I'm going to leave them to the side, and if they stay firm, I might just plant them. But the rest of them are bagged and labeled. So friends, there we have it. This is my primer on what to do with your insane bulb haul so it doesn't end up in your garage turning to compost. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to see you in the next one. If you haven't already, I would love for you to subscribe, tag along. I feel like we have a good time over here. I will see you in the next one. In the meantime, say hello to your garden for me.